On today's show, we welcome back Elizabeth Bieniek. Elizabeth joined us previously on the show to talk about entrepreneurship and how she co-founded Webex Hologram, which was the industry's first holographic collaboration system while she was at Cisco. Today, we're going to talk about her new book on corporate innovation called Cake on Tuesdays. We're going to talk about the 25 lessons to unlock corporate innovation, which Elizabeth has distilled basically a blueprint for executing change within complex organizations. We're going to rapid fire ask her lots of questions about the book, give you a little bit of background on her history and see how it applies to your business. So I hope you enjoy. Elizabeth, welcome back to the show.
Thank you. Great to be back.
Oh my gosh, I want to ask you all sorts of questions about gluten-free cooking. We'll do that another time. But I recommend anybody listening to go back and listen to our first episode, which I thought was a really cool insider look at entrepreneurship. How do you innovate within a large organization? And obviously we've chatted on and off since then, and I'm so excited to get to read the book. But my first question is, why name it Cake on Tuesday?
Well, that's what you would expect a business book to be named, right? Cake on Tuesday. Nothing about my journey was normal or traditional. And so having those conversations with my publisher, they recommended several titles that I immediately rejected. And like, these just don't sound like me or anything like this very untraditional journey. We need something a little bit different. And Cake on Tuesday is actually one of the chapters in the book. And it came from a particularly slow, tough, boring section of the project when we didn't have those exciting beginnings or satisfying conclusions. We were just in that slog in the middle. And having a conversation with my ops lead, we were talking about how do we bring some fun and energy back to this? And she came up with this great idea of what if we introduce this wheel of winning, wheel of fortune style, that at the end of our staff meetings, which were on Tuesdays, she would just spin the wheel. And if it landed on your name, you would get this beautiful, brightly colored cake arriving at your doorstep for literally no reason, just because. And that's where the title came from, Cake on Tuesday. It's kind of a reminder to just celebrate everything along the way, especially when the going gets tough.
So I love that. And I don't mean to take us off track for a second, but this idea of this sort of barren middle, right? Which is one of the sections of the book is leading through the barren middle. It's really interesting for anybody, whether you're innovating or you're just managing a team or you're just going through training for a marathon, right? There's the excitement of beginning, there's the finish line and celebration at the end, but often the real work and what differentiates the outcome is that part in the middle that it was funny when I was dating my wife, I said, the most important things to me is Tuesday night. And she's like, why? I'm like, because nobody wants to do anything on Tuesday night. I was like, so do we get along on Tuesday night when we're not going to a concert or a restaurant? Like we're just sitting there and like, there's nothing on TV. You're just looking at the other person. Like that's the barren middle, right? And that's where the special stuff actually is. But how do you help people through that and give them those sort of victories or reasons to push on, and maybe just expand on that idea of the sort of the Cake on Tuesdays?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is just realizing that it sounds so cliche, but it is the journey, not the ending where you ultimately end up. It is the process along the way. I think especially in innovation, you don't know what you don't know. So you are in this exploration journey. And if you're not recognizing and enjoying and poking holes at and celebrating all those little explorations along the way, you're going to miss the big innovation. I think we all like to jump through and get to this, like, what's the exciting finale? What's the big conclusion? What's the end reveal? But really, how often has anyone completed a successful innovation project that the end result looks exactly like what they thought it was going to at the beginning? Right. I would guess never. So this whole concept of leading through the barren middle, anytime you're trying to do something new or different, and especially if you're doing it entrepreneurially, you're trying to do something new and different inside of a big organization that is designed to optimize for repeat success, you are gonna hit some roadblocks. You're gonna hit, I think I used a Dr. Seuss quote in my book about the bang-ups and hang-ups can happen to you. You're gonna hit those bang-ups and hang-ups. And for my team, really keeping that motivation was, I think, what set us apart, because the first couple of years of Webex Hologram, it was exciting. In the first couple phases, you get those big wows, the big wins. This is cool tech. This is great. But when you're showing somebody an amazing experience for the first time, they react to it. It's like, wow, this is cool. When you then spend 8 months just improving the resolution or decreasing the latency or, fixing the background segmentation, it doesn't have that same, oh my God, amazing factor. Yeah. The average person might look at it and say, this kind of looks like what it did 8 months ago. What have you been doing? And so it's hard to keep that momentum. So I think really digging into every little win is what kind of kept things exciting. We started celebrating literally everything on the project. We would make silly little awards for things. We had one of our team members that we joked that he was the greatest garbage collector in the world because he'd go through and clean up all the code. And you start to celebrating things that wouldn't normally be celebrated, but really are the small details that make the difference between something that's an okay project to work on and something of, this is a cool place to be.
So let me ask you this, because my mind goes to two places. One is like, that's so cool. I love that. I love like the best garbage collector in the world. Like that's hilarious, right? And my other one is like, but wait, these are really serious people doing serious things that are trying to build something new and different. Like, do you worry about bordering onto the cheesy, like fluffery side of things with this?
I mean, you can't help but crack a smile at a corny dad joke, though. I mean, we all love a little cheese. I think too much of life, we take ourselves too seriously.
That was the second title, right? We all love a little cheese.
How's my next book coming out? No, honestly, though, I think, how often do you have fun and laugh to the point that you like spit your water out or your sides hurt at work? And if you get a chance to do that, you're going to remember that. I think the biggest takeaway for me of anything in this project is just the very simple, people are people. And if I'm having fun, somebody else is having fun. If I'm bored, somebody else is bored. If I'm stressed by something, somebody else is stressed by something. So really plugging into your team, what motivates them, and how do you make it a place that you want to be at? You want to have fun. You want to give your all. And I think that's more important when you have people who are experts in their field. They have the prestige, they have the title, they have 20 plus years under their belt. They've seen it all. They've done it all. So when you end up adding a little cheese to that, they end up having a bit more fun and it's more memorable. They want to be on the project because you're doing something different. You make it human, you make it relatable, you make it fun.
I love it. So I'm going to just pepper you on some are chapters, some are some of the lessons, some are just little anecdotes within the book.
Sure.
Talk to me about finding the angel in the marble.
My book is very biased on the front end of the process, even though I do have a section on leading through the barren middle, and I do have a section looking back at kind of insights from the rearview mirror is what it's titled. Yeah. But the first 3 sections are all about the beginning, because getting started is really, really hard. Getting that idea from this concept into something that you can actually fund and move forward is really, really difficult. So the whole concept of angel in the marble, it comes from there's a Michelangelo quote about when he was carving, I believe it was when he was carving David, about, I saw the angel in the marble and carved until I set him free. And I always loved the imagery of that, of thinking that the idea that you have, the concept that you have, the product you're trying to build, whatever it is, it's there in perfect clarity. You just have to remove everything else that is not that. And that idea of whittling it down to your minimum viable offer, your core pitch, whatever it is, that whittling it down, removing everything that's fluff, everything that's extra, and getting to that stark simplicity of here it is. It's hard to do, but it's amazing, because you start asking yourself these really basic questions of, is this in scope? Is this part of my vision or not? And if it's not, it is gone. It's just completely gone. So you get very decisive in what goes into this view, this pitch. And especially in innovation, especially those early stages, you have to make it crystal clear. It's got to be stupid simple. It's got to be really easy to explain. It's got to be something you can do your elevator pitch. You can have the chat with your 8-year-old neighbor and explain what you do in 60 seconds. And if you can't, maybe you don't understand what you do so well. Like, you really have to get super simple and super clear. And that whole concept of angel and the marble is just focus on that simplicity.
I love that. You have a childhood mantra of go outside. How does that apply to this book, to your sort of lessons to unlock?
I grew up in rural upstate New York, about an hour from the Vermont border. And I think I grew up in the generation and age too of just what my mom said for anything was always just go outside. Like,
right.
You're bored, go outside. You're tired, go outside. You don't feel good, go outside. And that was so drilled into me as a kid. I find now I'm repeating that on my own children. It's just go outside. You feel better if you go outside. I took that to heart when I was focusing on innovation initially. I was starting to look at what are the areas that my then company should be looking at more broadly that are going to impact our industry in the long term, and realizing how much of our corporate strategy process, and this is not a dig on my ex-company, this is just everyone in corporate America, right. Strategy, you end up looking at what do we do currently, what can we do in an adjacency to that, and how do we sort of build this bridge into the future. Very rarely do you just chuck all those things out the window and say, what's happening in the world around us? What are these potential gotchas or unknowns? What are the things I've never seen before? And you really do have to figuratively and literally go outside, get outside of your four walls, get outside of your business, get outside of all of your experts that are in your existing company, and go talk to the scrappy startup in a different country that's building something that your team might be telling you, well, it's not possible. Okay, it might not be possible, but they're doing it. Right. So really getting outside to see what else is going on, it removes those limitations of I've got this all set. I know what it's going to be. I've got my 5-year strategic roadmap. I've got all these things. Like, get your worldview a little broader, and you might realize there's some really cool things that you haven't even considered.
I love that. All right, so I'm gonna hit you with a few others here by the way, like, just the titles of your chapters are so fun. So, I mean, the book is very good at grabbing that in the title, but this next one, I was like, oh yeah, like add oil and reduce friction. Talk to me about that. What is the theory behind that?
The theory behind that is the fact that there's never a done. I think a lot of times when you are successful and hit a milestone, you get a team working well, you kind of have this quote unquote well-oiled machine. You're like, all right, I got this, I'm good. And then we get lazy and we start ignoring it. And that's when things go bad. It's the concept of that you can always be improving. Yeah. So when we got to a point where we were humming along as your proverbial well-oiled machine, we really took the time to take a step back and look at, let's go step by step through the process. Like right now, we might have the big things on the product, on the technology defined. We know what we're doing. We have a clear charter. What about our operations? What about our meeting structure? What about the cadence of how people are interacting, the format, how they're interacting? We have people in different time zones, different cultures, different one. What can we improve on the process? And constantly going through with I kind of joked, like, either you have an oil can to help reduce the friction or some sandpaper to help whittle it down. Like, how do you make everything smoother? And you can only do those in the quiet times. You can only do them when things are not on fire. And operational improvements are never that bright, sexy, shiny, on fire thing. Like, oh yeah, we got to do this. So you really have to intentionally go through and try to improve everything. But when you hit that next milestone and now you're going 100 miles an hour, you're going fast, you're gonna be really thankful that you streamlined all those little things and made them run more smoothly. So that whole section is really just focused on doing the things that are important but not urgent.
All right, so don't be a flat squirrel. What on earth? That's very vivid, like mental imagery that came to mind when I started thinking about what a flat squirrel is.
Very vivid. my team was very familiar with me constantly saying action trumps everything. I love decisiveness. I love action. I think I use some Teddy Roosevelt quotes in there about just the best thing you can do is make a decision, good, bad. You need to take action and move forward. And I think specifically in innovation in areas where you don't have a game plan, you don't have this is what worked, this is didn't. You're figuring it out as you go. Forward momentum is really important. You can always course correct later. You just need to be moving forward. So the "Don't be a flat squirrel" came from, it was a meme I saw ages ago. It said the road of life is paved with squirrels that could make up their mind. Don't be a flat squirrel.
Oh
And
my
it
gosh.
stuck with me. Yeah, it is memorable, right? So it really was a nice, I don't know about nice visual, but it's a memorable visual that enforces the whole concept of make a decision, because even if you make the wrong decision, it's better than no decision.
I think the best part about that question is I had no idea what you meant by flat squirrel, and it was so much better than what I had hoped it to be. Uh, wow, the road is paved with indecisive squirrels. Uh, that is amazing. All right, so I think I know where this one's from, but would love to know how you woved it into the book, which is Find Your Huckleberry.
So this one, I'm hoping to expound on this concept a bit more because this is something I think I'm very passionate about. Probably because I started some of my career too, being the second in command on some things. I ended up supporting some really great leaders at different times in operations type roles, chief of staff type roles, and realizing how much behind the scenes that is. And that's okay, but how essential and vital those roles can be. If you have a great second in command, you could have an amazing leader do beyond their wildest expectations, but you could also overcome some of the deficiencies of a not so great leader. And the flip side is true too. You can have an amazing leader, but if they don't have the right support, only one person can only do so much. So you really need those people that are in the shadows helping move a person or an organization or a vision forward. Later in my career, when I was fortunate enough to be in the leadership position and have some great support people as well, one person in particular that I talk about in my book, who was literally my right hand for nearly a decade, you realize from that perspective how much more you can do when you can multiply yourself, when you have people that you can rely on, that peace of mind of being able to hand something off to somebody and know that they will run with it. It's just amazing. And the reason I said huckleberries versus just support staff or second in command or something like that is it comes from Mark Twain's Huckleberry Finn, and this concept. I think it goes back to Arthurian legend about they used to drape a huckleberry garland over somebody's lance or sword, and it was this whole concept of I'm committed to you. Wherever you're going, I will come with you. And that was the way I described my huckleberry. And pretty much anything I would need to do or tackle, tell her what it was, and she would come with me, no questions asked. And that's priceless.
It's amazing. It's also an amazing quote in the movie Tombstone. Huckleberry comes up a lot, and I bet it was a reference back to the Mark Twain story.
I'll be your huckleberry.
Yeah, exactly. So I love it. Yeah, there's nothing better than having either being or having a trusted, person to go through the barren middle with, right? That can kind of see you through. So one of the chapter titles that hit me was "Nobody Cares Until You Make Them," and I thought that was so direct and clear. And to your point of sort of removing everything until you see the angel and the marble, like that is a very direct piece of advice that I think is great for any innovators, also founders, right? External innovators. But talk to me more about that sort of the fact that nobody's thinking about this the way that you are until you bring it to their attention.
I think that was my take on audience matters and tailoring your message to your audience and being persuasive based on their careabouts, not your careabouts. And this is something I think I learned the hard way, like most people. You figure out, you think something's very compelling because it's compelling to you, and then you try and sell it to somebody whether that's, trying to get funding or approval or whatever the case is, and it just falls flat. And then you realize you're trying to trade with them in your currency, not theirs. So nobody cares until you make them. It really is on you, on us, as an individual. If you want to move something forward, whether that's championing an idea, leading a team, building something amazing, selling a product, whatever it is on you to figure out how to get that message into your audience's hands in a way that they can understand, receive, and care, such that they'll take action. So in innovation specifically, you're regularly selling. You're trying to sell to your executive sponsors, whether that be a VC or some funding capacity, or if you're inside an organization like I was, you're selling to your executive chain that has to sign off on budget allocations for that. You're selling to the people in your organization, whether you own a company, run a company, run a team, you have people that are some way helping you along your journey. They have to be bought into that vision. And again, their careabouts are not going to be the same as yours. If the whole thing is like, hey, put your blood, sweat, and tears into this and I'll be successful, that's not a good sales pitch.
Right.
You need to translate it to what is in it for them. And so you're constantly changing that message so that every person you're talking to for every step of the journey, you are putting it in a way of, this is why this could be compelling to you. And it might be completely 100% different from why it's compelling to you as an individual. That's okay. You're not trying to convince yourself. If you're leading this journey, you've already convinced yourself. You're trying to convince somebody else. So you have to translate it in a way that they will resonate with them.
I love it. What's in it for them, right? Like at the end of the day, and I came into innovation from more of a sales, business development, founder mindset, and it's really interesting. There's not, that perspective isn't prevalent in the innovation space, right? Like they tend to be more inventors and tinkerers and folks like that. And it's like, yeah, you're constantly pitching, like constantly. Like it's like, hey, like this is why it's relevant. And they're like, why? But I have the best tech. And it's like, nobody cares. Like
exactly.
Why?
Nobody cares.
Why should they care? Like if you can tell them why they should care, then they'll get into your tech and all the special things that you care about. But it's a very interesting, I think, gap a lot of times in the space. One thing I wanted to dive into, you have a lot of really interesting leadership lessons, almost like, I would say people, right? HR, like basically how do you build a team? How do you protect your team? Which I think is a very interesting part of all this. And one of the chapters was titled "Being an Umbrella and a Shield." Can you talk maybe a little bit about that, as well as the role of leaders as coaches rather than obstacles?
Sure. The umbrella and a shield came out of the idea of the fact that you should be protecting your team. You should be protecting your culture, but specifically protecting all of the people in your organization. And that's the umbrella analogy comes from the whole like shit rolls downhill. Your people shouldn't be worried about what's raining down on them because you are an umbrella providing some protection from that. And the shield is the fact that you're going to get stuff from all angles. It's not just tops down. You're getting the naysayers, you're getting the red tape, you're getting we ran into this funding challenge, this timing challenge, this delay, whatever the case is. You're going to be feeling those onslaughts from every side. And as a leader, your job is to protect 360. So the umbrella and a shield was meant to define that, or give an analogy of what that feels like to me.
Yeah.
With regard to leadership in general, I've spoken on this topic a lot and I've written on this topic a lot, and I find myself keep coming back to it because it's so important to me. So the fact that at the heart of it, we are all the same. We're all people. We all are driven and motivated by our fears, our desires. Joys in life motivate us. The negative things demotivate us. And when we get into these corporate settings and these high stake things, we tend to try to pretend that that's not true. We try to think, well, I've got this degree, or I've got this title, or I've got this whatever, so therefore I'm immune to these emotional pulls. But at the end of the day, we're all the same, and we are emotional creatures. We're social creatures. We're driven by this. And It took me probably longer than it should have in my career to realize that most decisions are not logic based, they're emotion based. And really understanding that from a leadership perspective is you're never going to be successful as a leader if you don't really tap into and understand your team. I've tried to distill it down to this concept that I'm speaking about now. That's understanding individually so that you can lead collectively. And without the former, you cannot effectively do the latter, in my opinion. True leadership really happens in these quiet moments when you're getting to know somebody, when you're talking to them, understanding their motivations, understanding what drives them, understanding their careabouts. If you don't get to that level of detail with your people, you can never orchestrate how they're going to work with other people to create this magical thing. You're going to be stalled. And so if you want to create a team of superheroes that does amazing things beyond what anybody thinks a small team should be able to do, it comes from this. It comes from really getting to know your people and tapping into their individual power and plugging that in together such that it makes magic.
I love it. All right. The last question for you is another chapter is called Say It Once, Say It Twice, Say It Again, so you've said it thrice. This struck me as my mentor, my old boss, used to tell me that you have to repeat yourself till you're blue in the face. And only then have you begun to say the thing you're saying. And I was like, whatever, like, you know, I was earlier in my career and I was like, no way. And now, like, I hear myself saying that to everybody on my team, be like, you have to just say it again. Just keep saying it till you're so tired of saying it. And then it might get through. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Well, think about how much noise we're all constantly facing every day. And something might be very top of mind to you, but when you're trying to communicate it to somebody else, they've got a million other things that are very top of mind to them.
Yeah.
I think a lot of times we communicate things once and we think, all right, that was clear. Great. And even if it was, even if you communicated it perfectly, you said it in the currency in which they understand, it resonated. It's not like that person is going to walk away and not encounter any other distractions for the rest of the day. There is so much bombarding us on a regular basis. So part of it is just trying to break through the noise. But the other piece of that too is finding different ways to say it. I think really this goes back to understanding your people individually. People communicate in different ways. Some people are the pick up the phone and just call me, let's have a chat. And other people are like, no, just shoot me a message. I'll read it when I can.
Oh, yeah.
And other people like to see it in both, or they want it in a central format. When I'm ready to consume that information, I'm going to log into my portal and then I want to see it. And sometimes people don't always know. You find this a lot with, especially with executive updates. I've noticed this a lot. You might have an executive like, I'm too busy. I don't have time to send me, a one-liner every week. But then they come back and they ask you 25 questions from that. Like, if I just sent you a 5-bullet list,
yeah,
I think we could have avoided this back and forth. So sometimes what people say is not actually what they think or need. So really being in tune to how people communicate, what resonates with them, and we all benefit from repetition. So say it again, keep on saying it.
I love it. I think it's so true. I love saying it differently too, as an interesting add-on to it, reiterating it from different angles. So Elizabeth, I hope everyone enjoyed this as much as I did, and want to go buy the book. So where should they go to get it?
So my book will be available everywhere on October 15th, which is the official publication date. It's currently available for pre-sale on Amazon. So that page is up. You can go check it out and get your copy set. They will send it to you on October 15th if you order. And all of my information, I'm launching my own website now. I have elizabethbieniek.com, which has all the information on it as well.
Perfect. Well, we'll put those in the notes, and I'll be picking up a bunch of copies so that we get them on October 15th. But thank you so much for sharing time with us again today. I think you're the first person to be on the podcast twice.
Yes.
So that's
love to be a first.
I think you get a free pair of socks for that or something like that. But
awesome.
Thank you so much for your time, and I can't wait to read the book.
Thank you, Fred. Always good to chat.